register for our blog, and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Tuesday. It is May 26, 2020. Thanks so much for joining us. I really honestly consider taking today off because I don't do well with police brutality / police murder stories. I am not one that can just share those videos and join in the public outrage because that's not my natural inclination when I see stuff like this. I'm speaking about the murder that came out of the police department in Minneapolis that just happened last night. There was a video going around, and I'm not going to share it, nor am I going to play the audio from it, because I'm quite frankly just absolutely tired. I'm trying to use my words carefully here. Tired of seeing what happens to black men, in specific, black people, generally black women. It happens to them, but it just to black men every time we look up. This system is murdering us or attempting to murder us. Such is the case with George Floyd. He was the Minneapolis man who was killed by police last night. And the video is terrible. And watching it, listening to it, I'm not going to just put it here for you. If you want to see it, please go to Twitter. And he's telling the officers that he can't breathe. He's telling the officers that his stomach is killing him, that his neck is killing him, that he needs some water. The police officer, there's pictures all over the internet where he has his knee in the man's neck, like on the man's neck, putting the full weight of his body on this man's neck. And he died shortly after that. I'm not good with sharing these videos for obvious reasons. I mean, honestly, who's going to protect us from the police? Forget all this marching. Forget all this "we shall overcome" kumbaya. Forget all of this. Who's going to protect us from the police? Right? It is at the point. It is literally at the point. No exaggeration, no hyperbole, where we need the Black Panther Party for self-defense. We need armed patrols of people who would defend black people from police officers. Because police officers have gotten beside them. They've been beside themselves. They've been getting away with this for a very long time. It just so happened that social media is at the place, videos are at the place where we can get this exposed far more quickly. We're not able to get justice, and we're not able to get true justice, because true justice, as my friend Anoa Chonga says, means that you don't kill us in the first place. So who's going to protect us from the police is the question. Like, we need armed patrols. We need people who have guns and licenses to carry, to walk around the streets of the cities. And the thing is, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so you're going to be putting your life on the line, not only because black people carrying guns is totally different. It is a totally different experience than white people carrying guns. Black people doing an open carry protest is totally different than white people doing an open carry protest. So I know as I say these things, anybody who actually does it, you're putting your life on the line simply by exercising your constitutional right, which is why I'm really loath to talk about these stories, because talking about them is not enough. But yet, if we talk about the things that actually need to be done, that puts other people's lives on the line. Anybody who stands up for black people, your life is on the line, especially if you're a black person, especially if you're exercising your right to open carry. Do you think these police officers would not just open fire on black men who step to them and tell them to cease and desist? These pigs will lose their mind. They're waiting for an opportunity to express their latent bigotry and their latent, the fact that they're basically nobodies. They're nothing but small, fragile little men who have to beat on their wives, statistically speaking. They're the most abusive group of people in this country. Beat on their wives and their children. Domestic violence amongst police officers should tell you that we should not have police officers. What they need to do is go to get some mental health counseling and go to jail themselves, considering how not only they treat their own families, but they treat the society that they're supposed to be serving. But as we see, it's not protect and serve of black people, and it's certainly not protect and serve poor people. It's protect and serve this white supremacist capitalistic system. See, I'm telling you, I don't need to talk about this. I should have taken the day off, because when we start talking about how these pigs who they really serve, when we start talking about who they really serve, you realize they are not here to protect and serve the average person. They are not here to protect and serve black people at all. They are here to protect and serve capitalism, which is a construct of white supremacy. That's who they're here to serve. So, as I talk about it, and we know we need someone to protect us from the police, but I can't make a reasonable suggestion like us exercising our Second Amendment right and marching. And when we say marching, I'm not saying we shall overcome marching. I'm saying marching to the scene where police officers are executing right in real time black men and defending them from these police officers. But I can't make a suggestion like that because inevitably it's going to get someone hurt because these pigs are out of control. And I'll start calling them police officers when they stop behaving like swine. I'll give them respect when they start showing black people respect. Until then, the police. And I mean that from the depths of my saved, Christian, sanctified soul. The police. While I am not going to play the video of George Floyd or the audio of George Floyd being killed by the police, I am going to play this audio of Amy Cooper, the now infamous Amy Cooper, who threatened to weaponize the police against a black man because of some minor confrontation that they had in Central Park. And I use that lightly. Listen to this exchange and let's discuss.
Please stop. Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African-American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the Ramble. I don't know.
Thank you.
Now I'm laughing at how desperate she got when the operator obviously was like, "Man, what's the problem?" And she was like, she went full white Karen mode, yeah, crying and shit. Now that's the only thing funny about it, because she attempted to weaponize the police. And actually, let me not even say it like that, because that suggests that the police aren't already weaponized against black people. She tried to get this man executed because of, I don't know if the confrontation is about it. At this point is a he said, she said thing, something about the dog not being on a leash. That's what it was. The man made a comment about her not having the dog on the leash in the area. The black man whose last name is also Cooper, which is quite the, it's quite apropos considering the race in this country. They might have some lineage together. Somewhere back in her slave owner ancestry. But anyway, I digress. So Mr. Cooper, he started to use his own inner Karen. That's what he did. He was like, "Look, woman, you're supposed to have your dog on the leash, and your dog's not on the leash." Now you can hear the dog in the video struggling because of how she was handling the dog. So subsequently, she's been trending for the last 24 hours. She has been put on a paid administrative leave. Obviously people doxed her. They found out who she was, and she's been paid on administrative leave. I think she should be fired. Because you know why? Here's the thing. I know there's a couple of people who are virtue signaling over doxing and the public mob and et cetera, et cetera. Here's the thing. This man's name could be trending today alongside George Floyd. Instead, because he put that on social media, her name is trending. I want us to make sure that we understand very clearly the difference. She probably has enough savings to weather any kind of loss of a job. She'll probably be just fine. She'll change her name and maybe get some plastic surgery and go on about her life. whereas she tried to get this man killed. I have no sympathy whatsoever. None for her. Whatever happens to her career, whatever happens, that's, you know why? Because here's the thing. I really believe that all of us have an appointed time to be, to trend, to be go viral. Every single one of us, we're gonna go viral for something in some way, on some scale. Maybe not as big as Amy, but our job is to not be a dick and trend for shitty reasons like she did. Like what she did literally could have got this man killed. And it is the personification of weaponizing racism in this country. It is like the living embodiment of what has been done to black men throughout American history. I think about Emmett Till, about the fact that even if the charges against Emmett Till were true, which they were not, it was weaponized against him and got him killed, right? This is the shit that has been happening in our country for years. And it is, I'm sorry if I don't have any remorse whatsoever about her losing her job, being doxxed. Matter of fact, she lost her dog. She had to surrender the dog because how she treated the dog. All right, after the patron party, we'll talk about her politics, which are interesting.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon
Here
Show.
we go. Very special welcome and thank you to all of our patrons without whom this show is not possible. I'd like to take a minute to thank Yvonne B. Thank you for becoming a patron. Brenda Johnson, thank you so much for becoming a patron. Sam Jackson, thank you for becoming a patron. John Panetta, thank you for becoming a patron. Aslak Hertzberg, thank you for becoming a patron. Bounce. And thank you to Benita Thomas. Thank you for becoming a patron. And did I get James Johnson in there yesterday? I don't know if I got you in there yesterday, James, but thank you also for becoming a patron. You too. Wait, let's bob. I get beside myself sometimes. Gotta take a minute to bob. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, access to exclusive, uncut, unfiltered, unedited interviews, and none of the corporate advertisements like you're going to get right here.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Yep. Welcome back. Welcome back. Special shout out to everyone listening on YouTube and via Twitter and Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in every afternoon, somewhere around the 2:30, 3 o'clock hour. Depends on how fast I'm able to get it up. You too can become a patron, patreon.com. So anyway, let's get back to Amy Cooper. I'm so mad that she's like, low key, like every time I hear Amy Cooper, I think Winnie Cooper. And it makes me upset that she's selling the name of Winnie Cooper. And if you know who Winnie Cooper is, that's enough said. Okay. But when I saw the video, my alarms went off. Number one, she's from New York. So the odds are she's a liberal. Just on the sheer merits that she's in New York. I mean, don't be wrong. They're conservatives in New York. Yeah, but the odds. We're talking about odds. Two, she was wearing a mask. And you know conservatives right now are all of this, their freedom is predicated on them not having to wear masks. So that was like strike two. I was like, I don't think she's a conservative. Then three, she desperately tried and successfully did so to use African American instead of black. And even though deep down I could hear her really wanting to unleash the fury of nigger, she really managed to remain PC while she tried to weaponize the police and use the police to execute and lynch this black man. So she was politically correct. White woman from New York, wearing a mask. I mean, she had a good mask, right? She had an N95 mask. She didn't have a surgical mask. And then three, she desperately tried to use African Americans. She tried to use politically correct language as she attempted to get this man executed. All that to say, this is not a conservative. Conservatives are trying to kill themselves because they think liberty is tied to their masks. This is a liberal. This is a resistance type liberal. Now, I'm not 100% sure about all of the campaign donations that are going around because there could be more than one Amy Cooper. In fact, I'm sure there's more than one Amy Cooper in New York City. But if this is the same new Amy Cooper who made donations that are being floated around on Twitter showing who she donated to. Yesterday when I said this, I was so accurate and I didn't even realize it. I said she looks like she would have voted for Barack Obama a third term. If you get the reference. In fact, she donated to Barack Obama twice. And if this is the same Amy Cooper, she not only donated to Barack Obama, she's donated to Pete Buttigieg, and she's donated to the DCCC. So what does this tell us, ladies and gentlemen? This tells me so much about what I've already known and what most of us black folks really know, unless we're being paid to not acknowledge it, is that the Democratic Party and the liberals, everybody in this country has a race problem. Now, I'm not gonna draw false equivalence here and use this as an opportunity to punch left because there's no need to, because this wasn't a progressive. But I guarantee you, if this person had donated money to Bernie Sanders, everybody and their mama would be talking about the race problem that Bernie Sanders has and still has. Like Bernie Sanders is always going to be a racist to these people. Okay. That's number one. But the real truth that we do know about this is that the Democratic Party and white people, I don't care how liberal you are, you have as soon as you step on the toes of a liberal, they will quickly turn into just as racist, even if it's politically correct, as conservatives. Okay? Now, the same is probably true about progressives, but they aren't the ones on trial right now. They're not the ones who did this. This was a person who donated to Pete Buttigieg, right? So I'm sure she's going to donate to Joe Biden. I'm sure at this point, though, I'm quite sure Joe Biden's team is smart enough to reject her donations. But what am I saying? I'm saying we can't look at this race thing in this country as a Democrat-Republican thing. Absolutely not. As my wife said this morning as she was listening to the story, she was like, race doesn't know political party. Racism doesn't know political parties. Man, I mean, every now and then when my wife, she doesn't tune into politics a lot because I do enough in this house for both of us times 10. But when she does tune in, man, she strikes that shit right at the heart of the matter. Racism doesn't know political parties. And that's the facts. But it also speaks to how deeply rooted the racism is and how they would weaponize the specific institutions that are a threat to black people against black people, right? This is this is not just your listen, it would have been better, honestly, in this case, she should have just called him a nigger and kept moving because at least his life would not have been threatened. Now, granted, conservatives, especially in the South, you see in Georgia, they take shit into their own hands. They're going to gun us down. So it's really a lose-lose situation. There's not really a situation where this works out because racism in America really never works out too well for black people. I'm just trying to give all sides of the aspects of the story, and I'm trying to do so in a kind of laid-back way without actually getting upset. Because if I had this story on top of the story of the young man who was killed by police officers in Minneapolis yesterday, then I become doubly angry. I become not inordinate, what I'm talking about. I become appropriately angered at the fact that this white liberal woman would use the police officers to kill yet another black man, just like a black man was killed yesterday. So forgive me if I address this kind of tongue in cheek and kind of casually, because the opposite side of me is to flip my fucking lid because this shit is happening too much in this country. That said, I'm going to breathe and just joke about the fact that you can't win, man. Black folks, we just can't win in this country. Democratic Party, Republican Party. It's like racism is so deeply ingrained in this country that as soon as you become inconvenient for a white person, I don't care their political persuasion, you will face the wrath of their racism. That's what happens when people get angry. They go to their base. They go to their lowest common denominator, right? And for those people, those white people, not all white people, I know a lot of white people in the audience are going to be like, Ben, I would never do that. And I'll take your word for it. But for those people whose common denominator, their lowest common denominator is racism, when you make them angry and when you step on their toes and you become inconvenient for them and they become enraged, if your lowest common denominator is racism, it's going to come out. It's absolutely. I mean, if it's sexism, it's going to come out. That's what happens. What is your lowest common denominator? What is that primal side of you that you tap into when you get angry? You become a misogynist. You become a racist. You become a bigot of some kind. And this is the story in the case of Amy Cooper, who would have voted for Barack Obama a third term if she had the opportunity, but who also would have let police officers execute a black man simply because he became an inconvenience for her. Now, I normally don't do this, but this tweet was so good that it just sparked an entire conversation in my head that I decided to share with you. It's a tweet from Sarah Schaefer. I don't know who she is. Actually, well, she's a comedian. Here's her bio. She's a comedian, a writer, and she has a memoir out that's coming out in August. There you go. But this is what she tweeted. She said, "I don't need a mask. The blood of Jesus protects me, but I do need a gun." Talking obviously about evangelical conservatives who are out here talking about how ridiculous the rest of us are. Listen, I went to the gas station this morning to try to find some alcohol, not drinking alcohol, but like rubbing alcohol, because it's a good, it's a good disinfectant when we're washing our groceries. Like, we're taking this thing seriously in this household. But I masked up. I had 2 masks. I wasn't sure how good the first mask was going to be. I don't know. I'm just doing the best I can. I'm saved as the rest of them. I know I cuss like a motherfucker, but I love Jesus just as much as everybody. And nigga, I'm putting on a mask, but I digress. That's not the point of this segment. The point is, I'm stupid. The second point is, it takes a lot of mental gymnastics to actually be a conservative in this country. Right. Don't get me wrong. We there's a lot of gymnastics that's happening with liberals, but we got to just call a spade a spade. And this tweet actually really points out some of the mental. It's convenience. It is a matter of convenience. They use their brain when they want to, and they shut that shit off whenever it's convenient for them. They are Christians when it serves their purposes, and they shut it off when it's no good for them. Right? They're Christians when it comes to quote unquote sexual morality, but when it comes to economic morality, they're like, Jesus was a capitalist, even though he chased bankers out of the bank, chased bankers out of the temple, rather. Right? They're convenient. It's convenient. Like, they're Christian when it comes to whatever morality they want to push on everyone else here in this country, but they completely forget about their morality when we have war. Like, they believe, they flip it on its head and believe that Jesus would support the American empire dropping bombs across this globe. So similarly, when they think that God is going to protect them, so they don't need a mask, but then what is God going to do? Like, he's going to no longer protect you. You need a gun. Now, for black people, that would be the case. We do need to get guns. Because why? Well, generally because of white people, and generally because of white Christians. I think I pointed this out on the show, and I haven't done it in some time, but you do realize in our fight for civil rights in this country, the number one group we had to fight against were white Christians. You really think about it, throughout American history, Christians were the white Christians. That was the group that black people had to fight against and really hide from. They were the same people who would lynch you on Saturday night and then go to church on Sunday morning. I mean, hell, they would go to church on Sunday morning and then lynch you at the picnic after church. So, black folks need to get guns, but I just thought it was funny. Okay, I'm not going to belabor the point. All right, for any of my white listeners who are like, Jesus, Ben, you give us such a hard time. You always are attacking white people on this show. I'm going to tell y'all people to stop doing stuff that's attackable and attack worthy. But anyway, here's a criticism of a black person. I mean, hell, I criticize myself on this show, so you guys know what time it is. I know that caveat was completely unnecessary, but anyway, I just feel stupid today. But no, seriously, Jamal Harrison Bryant, I am a fan of his. I'm sorry. I am a fan. I've been a fan of his since he was at Empowerment Temple. He's a preacher in Baltimore, Maryland. I really like his work. He's a fabulous preacher, but he tweeted something extremely stupid this morning, and I had to get in his ass. I guess I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to edit that. Whatever. So you know what I mean. This is what he tweeted. He said, "You can't have $1 million dream with the minimum wage work ethic. No, bruh. Now, because I'm a fan of his, I'll go ahead and tell you that he's already apologized. But the damage is that the thinking is there, right? The mentality is there. And it's a mentality that's prevalent in black churches. That's because there was a coup d'etat in the black church that substituted prosperity gospel for the black liberation theology, right? The revolutionary black church was the centerpiece of the black church. That's the reason black church exists in the first place. We weren't permitted to go to church with white people. So the AME church had to start, having church services for black people. So black church was born literally in the liberation movement. And that was and has historically been a threat. It has been one of the number one conduits through which we organize for liberation in this country. It was a serious problem for white folks, racist white folks during the civil rights movement because we had localized, organized structures already. And the way you weaken that, I've written extensively about this. Another person who's written extensively about this in the academic sense, I did it in the opinion sense. But Melissa Harris Perry, she's done amazing work outlining that transition where black liberation theology was substituted with a prosperity gospel. And once you get the prosperity gospel inundated in the black community, that's how you see this mentality of black folks being more, and don't get me wrong, there's so much more that's happening in terms of like a lot more black people aren't going to church. I get that. But that in the context of the church, you see more sermons about getting your bag than you see about getting liberation and getting freedom from this capitalistic system. Right? You get more people who preach like this tweet from Jamal Harrison Bryant. I mean, I've heard him preach plenty of times liberation, right? So I'm not going to try to minimize his work, but you hear more sermons like this. You can't have $1 million dream with the minimum wage work ethic. And that shit right there would get so many applauses in the black church now because black churches have turned into nothing but incubators for capitalism, for black capitalism. And this mentality has become prevalent as really instead of questioning, one, why minimum wage is not livable wage in this country. Two, the fact that minimum wage workers are literally our essential workers right now who are doing the hardest and the riskiest work. Three, 80% of black people work in jobs that they cannot do from home. And that is a direct correlation between the fact that black people are dying at a disproportionate rate from COVID-19. I mean, there are layers and layers of analysis that should take place, but this is the type of mentality that is not just from Jamal Harrison Bryant, which is why I'm talking about it. It's prevalent across black church in general. That's because some really shrewd evangelicals understood that if we just give these niggas some money, then we could get them off their liberation theology. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm going to go into preacher mode here for a second because this is a sermon for real, right? So because white evangelicals, who I've already stated in this episode, they were literally the people against whom we had to fight for our civil rights, for our liberation. And the black church was the centerpiece of our organizing during the 60s. Throughout the entirety of the civil rights movement, the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, right? Because they knew that they had to find a way to neutralize that power base because Dr. King wasn't satisfied with the civil rights movement. Dr. King became a threat through the black church to American empire. And how do you neutralize that? They said, well, black people are poor. So if we start giving these black church, well, that's my music. I'll finish this after the music. Patrons, stay tuned. I'll pick up right there. Everyone else, thank you. I didn't do that on purpose, but I mean, it is a convenient cliffhanger for you to go to patreon.com/The BPD Show. I'll see everyone else tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.